Good evening. My name is Joseph Berger, and I'm the Theater Operations and Events Manager at Film Forum, a not-for-profit, four-screen cinema in Manhattan's West Village. I'm speaking to you all live from my office on West Houston Street. This is yet another virtual event we are hosting while the theater is temporarily closed. So first and foremost, we wish you all health and happiness at this time. Tonight's event is on Twilight's Kiss, a beautiful and moving new drama by Hong Kong-based filmmaker Ray Yeung. Twilight's Kiss had its world premiere at the 2019 Busan International Film Festival in South Korea, where The Hollywood Reporter called it a moving portrait of a gay couple in their golden years and a delicately rendered and quietly affecting drama. We are very proud to present Twilight's Kiss on our virtual cinema platform at filmforum.org. If you haven't done so already, please go there to rent the film. I'd love to welcome our guest moderator for the evening, Nick McCarthy. Nick is the director of programming at NewFest, New York's leading LGBTQ+ film and media organization. Founded in 1988, NewFest produces and hosts the New York LGBTQ Film Festival annually in October, in addition to year-round community and premiere events. Nick has been with NewFest since 2016. Prior to that, Nick served as the film curator at the Tank in New York City and worked in academic publishing and international media production. Nick has written for Slant Magazine, Time Out New York, NBC News, the Boston Phoenix, and has served on multiple domestic and international film festival juries. Nick, just unmute yourself. There you are. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? Thank you so much for hosting us, Joe.
It's great to see you. Thank you. You're the perfect person to moderate this discussion. I always love hearing you speak about films, so really happy to have you.
Well, I love the programming at Film Forum, and this is, of course, very indicative of the quality that you have, and love seeing that red banister back there, too, bringing me back to the Film Forum.
The red column, the iconic red column. I'd love to welcome our very special guest tonight, the writer and director of Twilight's Kiss, Ray Yeung. Ray's first feature, Cut Sleeve Boys, premiered in 2005, and won the Best Feature at the Outfest Fusion Festival in Los Angeles. His second feature, Front Cover, was the closing film for the Asian American International Film Festival in New York City in 2016, and won Best Screenplay at the Film Out San Diego LGBT Film Festival. Additionally, Ray has written and directed 8 award-winning short films and has directed 2 stage plays, one staged in London, the other in Hong Kong. Ray is the chairman of the Hong Kong Lesbian and Gay Film Festival, currently the longest running queer festival in Asia. Although based in Hong Kong, Ray is an MFA graduate of Columbia University. How are you, Ray? I know it's very early where you are. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, hi guys, how are you?
Good morning, Ray. Congrats on the film. It was beautiful. I can't wait to hear the two of you talk about it. So,
thank you so much. Thank you for organizing this.
I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you both in about 45 minutes.
Thanks, Joe. And hi, Ray. How are you today? I know it's early.
Good. Yes, nice and early. I had my coffee, so it's fine.
Oh, great. Perfect. I'm staying hydrated with my water. And I want to thank you again for not just being here, but also for sharing this gorgeous film. I had the honor of seeing it on the big screen about a year ago in Berlin, and it still sort of resonates in my heart and mind. It's been one of my favorite films to recommend this past year, and we were so happy to have it at NewFest Festival this past October. So congratulations again on this film.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes.
And I want to just reiterate what Joe said. Everyone watching, if you're in the Zoom, please feel free to add your questions in throughout this. I'm going to ask Ray a few questions that will be going for about half an hour. But please put in your Q&A questions, and we'll make sure to get to it by then. If you get on those thinking caps. Well, Ray, thank you once again. I know that Joe mentioned your background too, and even back from Front Cover, you are reinventing the queer romantic comedy as well. And I want to acknowledge, how wonderful it is to see this representation of 2 older folks falling in love. I want to, of course, ask you first how you came up with the idea for this film and sort of its beginning phases and how it came to fruition, really.
Yeah, I mean, after I finished Front Cover, which was shot in New York in 2015, I came back to Hong Kong, especially wanting to make a Cantonese movie because originally I'm from Hong Kong, but I've lived in the West for a very long time. And I really want to make a Cantonese movie, something that is based in Hong Kong. So I was looking for topics, really, something to explore, something which I think interesting. And I came across this book called The Oral Histories of Older Gay Men in Hong Kong.
Oh.
So the original version was in Chinese. So this is an English edition. So it's written by a Hong Kong university professor, Travis Kwong. It's basically a collection of 12 interviews. It's an oral documentation of these 12 guys about their experiences. They're all in their 60s or 70 years old, some 80 even. So it's about their experiences, mostly in the closet, some are married. So I thought it was really fascinating. And first of all, in the LGBT community, we very rarely talk about elderly people, really. It's always based on youth. And also cinemas also very rarely address this topic as well, especially about love affair between two old people. So I thought it's a really interesting topic to bring to the new cinema. So I asked Travis whether I could meet some of them. So Travis said, well, actually some of them passed away already. So I felt, wow, that's really an urgency to tell this story. So eventually I met up with some of them and, went to their apartments and then we talked and then we became friends, really. And then I kind of tried to recreate a story, not really based on particular one person, but just a group of them that share experiences and sort of like recreate a story about two guys who are married and what happened if they meet nowadays, with all the baggages, all their family responsibilities that they have to deal with, but fall in love for the very first time. So that's how the story come about.
That's great. Yeah. And I think it's so great to hear that background too, because there's something about the film that's at once so specific, but also very universal. And I think you did a marvelous job too, casting, and your actors give such, beautifully naturalistic performances. I was wondering if you can speak a bit about the casting process for this film.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I went back to Hong Kong, it was 2015, and then, write a script and things like that. So it was kind of ready in 2017 already, but it took a whole year to do the casting because the issue is that the two main characters is in their 60 to 70 years old, and it was really difficult to find actors who are willing to play gay at that age group. I mean, nowadays in Hong Kong it's quite open. So if the two main characters are in their 30s, I didn't think I would have a problem casting. But because of that age group, a lot of the actors, they were in the Shaw Brothers studios when they were in their prime, when they start acting. So they were mostly martial arts action heroes, or they work in the television playing swordsmen and things like that. So they all have this very macho image. And a lot of them, the first question they said to me when I approached them is like, why me? Why do you think that I want to play a gay part? So I thought, okay. And then some of them said no right away. And then some said, okay, I'm interested in reading it, but first of all, I will not hold hands with another man. I will not kiss another man. I will not go topless. So they have a list of things that they wouldn't do. So of course, I didn't call them back. And then there's only really a handful of them who were interested in reading the script. So I had to go through, quite a long time of like meeting people and getting rejected, basically. But eventually, I find Tai Bo, the lead. I watched a movie that he was in, and I thought he was very good playing a father. So I tried to find out where he is, and because he wasn't very well known in Hong Kong, and by then he already went to Taiwan and has been settled there for a long time. So I actually went to Taiwan to talk to him and sort of like gave him the script. And he showed it to his wife. And 3 months later, he came back and said, yes, he's interested in doing it. So by then, I already has exhausted all the actors of that age group, really. So I had to go for actors who are younger, in their 50s. So then I find Ben, the guy who plays Hoy. And he's a stage actor mostly. And so he has played gay before. So it was a little bit quicker to find him. But by then it's already like 9 or 10 months I've been casting. So, and then Ben came on board and then the whole thing then could really, really start. I got my 2 leads by then. So I could really start planning the rest of the shoot. Yeah. So it took a long time. Yeah.
I'm sure once you found them too. Did you do any like chemistry tests between them too? And I'm also curious to hear a bit about how you directed them, because as I mentioned, they give such naturalistic performances, whether when they're walking around the market, sort of the glances that they exchange. I'm just curious sort of if you had more of an observational view or the kind of technique you used when directing them.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, when I first got them together, they were, I got like 5 or 6 actors who were interested, so I did chemistry tests with them. I had to say to them, it's like because like Taibo is quite established in Taiwan, and also he used to do all those Jackie Chan movies, so I didn't want to say that it was an audition. I just said that, oh, wow, a chemistry test and things like that, because I still need to see, how good they are playing gay, Mm-hmm. So we did that, and then Taibo and Ben were really the best, but had the most chemistry. So I thought that was good. So that's why I cast them eventually. And for them to get together, I mean, we did some rehearsals. What I usually do with actors is that I actually write quite a detailed background stories for them about their lives and things like that. So I have them read them, and then I have them in a sort of like table read, and then they just read it out to each other. And because all the actors are very professional, so they already know how to play it. You just want to tell them how you want it to be played, really, the way that your style, really, and then they can do it. So once when they have their backgrounds, and then you put them together and put them in a situation, in the scene, they can just do it organically, and then you just have to adjust and say that, oh, well, I want it to be a little bit more subtle, or in this part, I just want you to do it a little bit different. So, and then they can just make adjustment very quickly. So, for most part, there were not a lot of problems. It was very smooth, I must say. The only issue, of course, is the scene where they have to be intimate, with each other, which is understandable, I think, particularly for Taibo, because he was in a lot of Jackie Chan movies when he was younger. So, and he is pretty much come from that kind of very macho group of actors. So he had a little bit, he was chain smoking that morning. Of course, and Ben has kissed another guy before on stage, so he was a little bit more relaxed. So I really just spent a whole morning, sort of like did a little bit of warm-up rehearsal with them. I kind of like told them that is, these kind of scenes is almost like a dance scene, really. You just have to get used to the steps, and when you get used to this step, then you can flow. So we spent a whole morning just like going through, okay, at the beginning you touch him here, you touch him there. So really, it's just being naked with another guy that they feel embarrassed about. But once we spend a whole morning touching each other, when that embarrassment is gone out of the window, then they can get into the character. And then after lunch, we start shooting, and then we finish by the evening. We finish the lovemaking scene. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but it was not hard. I mean, we did it in a day.
Yeah, no, I mean, it comes off so beautifully. And speaking to that too, I mean, I love your choices of locations too, whether public or in the households, but also, spaces that really tie together our community too and show support. I'm sort of curious, like, how early on you thought about the cruising scenarios too, and sort of setting up. I know it's kind of like a breadcrumb at the beginning of the film, so I was wondering if you can speak to queer spaces too and the importance in this story.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when I wrote the script, I have it in mind that through the interviews, I knew that they used to go to parks where there's a big kind of like public toilet. And so that they can cruise, and then they meet someone inside, and then they go out into the park, and then they can sit around and they can chat and exchange numbers or whatever. So we were trying to find that, and it took a while, and we couldn't find anywhere that we felt was right, because it's a lot of it is being changed, and then a lot of the parks now has a lot of different kind of facilities. It makes it very, very public, and we didn't really think that they're the right place for people who would cruise. So after a while, so I came across the area where we actually shot, and then we thought, wow, that was perfect for it. And of course, after we we decided on the location. Then we heard from someone that, do you know that is the only remaining real cruising ground in Hong Kong, which they call a fish pond, which where people to fish. So it was quite funny that we actually find the only place in Hong Kong that is still active in the gay scene, where people actually really do go there to cruise and then do go hang out there in the park. So it's kind of almost like fate that, you know, we find that location. And the other location that I want to talk about is the scene where they sit at the, you know, the on like a bench, and then they think like harbor when they talk to each other. I really wanted to find a space where it's very quiet, but it's almost kind of like left, you know, like nobody really noticed it. And then I came across this place, which was very interesting because it's at the middle of nowhere, and it's right next to the flyover. But yet at the same time, it had this kind of like bench there, and it's facing this beautiful view. I just thought this is a perfect space for them to sit there and just talk to each other, have a heart-to-heart, because it's underneath the flyover. It looks really ugly. It's a bit of mudland. But at the same time, from that angle looking out, it's this expansive, beautiful view of Hong Kong. So I just thought it was like the perfect image. So when we find it, it was like, oh, wow, this is wonderful. And trying to find the rights to shoot it was interesting, because it's not a government place and it doesn't belong to the building next to it. It's almost like, you know, just left there, and no one really take care of it. And I think that really symbolized the love affair of these two people as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know, you know, you mentioned sort of clearing, like what was the permits like, and also sort of gaining clearance. I know you have a lot of public spaces. Was sort of the Hong Kong government supportive through cultural programs for this project, being an LGBTQ project, or did you face any challenges around that?
I mean, when we tried to get money, I mean, getting the funding to shoot this movie, of course, was the other big challenge that we had. So at the beginning, we applied to the Hong Kong Film Fund. But the Hong Kong Film Fund is interesting because it's not a grant, really. They see it as a co-financing. So really, they have to see that the project, which they feel that will make profit, which, you know, is an interesting concept for government funding, we felt. But anyway, so they rejected our project because they felt that a story about two elderly gay men doesn't really have a market for it. So we didn't get the funding for it. And I showed the script to a very famous Hong Kong out director called Stanley Kwan, who did Lan Yu. And he really likes his script. So he said, oh, okay, I'll help you. I'll see whether I can find production companies who might finance it. And at that time, he had very well connection with production companies in China. So he asked around, and then they said, no, they are not interested in showing financing an LGBT movie, mainly because it cannot be shown in China. In China, they still do not show LGBT movies in the cinema, at least. So they are not interested. So he said, okay, in Taiwan, there might be more chances. So he spoke to people in Taiwan as well. Again, you know, no one would finance it. And in Hong Kong, of course, all the time we have been looking around and we couldn't get anybody to support us. So eventually how we did it was basically by crowdfunding. We got we did a lot of table reads and invited the LGBT communities, people to come and sort of like sit and listen to the stories being read out, and then we have a discussion, and then those who are interested can help us to finance the movie. So that also took a long time to get it together. But I mean, because I already organized the Hong Kong LGBT Film Festival for a long time, so I already have that connections. And then just through other people talking and just keep on inviting people come back to do the table reads. So we were able to get the money together to shoot it. So the whole process, again, that was very time consuming as well.
Yeah, well, I love your perseverance. It's a beautiful product too, and I know it's great to hear that the community really came out for it as well. I'd love to speak a bit more actually about the community spaces, since it seems so tied to the film. You know, especially when Hoi is going and they're talking about sort of nursing homes being set up that is sort of by and for queer elders. I was wondering if you can speak a bit about that piece of the film, whether it was always part of it, and if there's an overlap in reality with, getting funding for these spaces.
Yeah, I think when I was doing the research for the screenplay, I came across this group called Gay and Grey. So it's really a group of a social group of elderly gay men, mostly in the closet. So they meet about once a month. Usually they will have dim sum or something like that, and afterwards they will go to the social worker's apartment, and they will have a meeting there. And sometimes just to talk about, very simple things about, gay pride is coming up, what should we do, or something like that. And so I started attending these meetings. And one time they had this conversation is about trying to find an elderly home for LGBT people, because then they start talking about the reason why they needed it. The ones who have been out for a long time, they've already been out for 30 or 40 years. Those are the ones felt that they had a big concern that once if they have to go into an elderly home, they will have to go back into the closet. Because they've already been out for a long time, and a lot of them are single, they don't have a partner. And their families have kind of rejected them or distant from them. So they're very, very, alone. So they felt that if they go into an elderly home, that they are very worried that they might get, discriminated against, bully even, or even the people, the caretakers may not know about what kind of needs that they want, and, very simple things about worrying, where am I going to put all my love letters, even my pawns, or some beautiful clothes, some of them like to cross-dress sometimes, so where am I going to put that, so they're worried that they have to throw it all away. So that's how the conversation started. And through the months, they were actually got a chance, invited to go and speak publicly to the government, requesting, what they need. So one of the activists from the group actually went there, Coleco, and actually did make that speech. And I thought that was so powerful. So I said to him, do you want to be in my film? So he said, sure, okay. So I actually ended up casting him. So he's a real life activist. He's the one who plays Dior in the movie. But he's actually really playing himself. And the speech that he made in the film is actually the speech that he actually made himself when he was in Lecco, trying to. So he actually wrote it out. So I said, okay, I'm going to use your piece, the piece that you did. So he said, okay. So yeah, so that part is like we did our kind of like social realism by actually casting real people. Part of it is a real life event almost, yeah.
Yeah, no, and you're giving further visibility to this too. Oh my God, that's so great. You're so wonderful in the film too. So that's so marvelous to hear.
Yeah, because like I think through that I had some really interesting story. Like one of the guys, in the movie, there's this guy called Chill. Yeah, the one that who Hoy goes to his apartment and looks after him. That is very much inspired by one of the interviewees. This guy, right, in real life, this guy, he, at one point, he couldn't walk anymore because he has these knee problems. So he applied to the government for Meals on Wheels, where they can deliver food to his house. Mm-hmm. But he was so worried that because they have to come and do some kind of like initial interview, so he was very worried that they will find out that he's gay. Mm-hmm. So, and therefore will reject him. I mean, which is really he himself thinking that, he's projecting that because they would never do that. But he just felt that, well, if they find out that I'm gay, they will reject me. So he was very worried. So he had been collecting all these Hello Kitties in his house for 30 years. He's a real Hello Kitty fan. And because he was so worried that he threw all the Hello Kitties out.
Oh, no.
Yes. Yeah, so all the interviews, so we were so shocked when he told us. He said, yes, because I thought that if they come and they see that I collect Hello Kitties, they will immediately know that I'm gay, and therefore I will not get my meals. So I know, so it was really sad, but eventually, of course, he did get his meals, but then so we helped him. So when we did the movie, we also bought a lot of Hello Kitties and we put it in Chill's apartment, sort of like to decorate it. You know, if you pay attention, you can see that we have Hello Kitty's curtains in his room and things like that. So afterwards, that we gave it all to him and sort of like decorated his own apartment with all the Hello Kitties that we use on the film.
Oh my God, that's great. And yeah, like donate it further too to space.
Yeah.
I love how you know, you so organically interweave a lot of themes, whether it's, you know, traditions with marriage or religion and such too. And I think it ends up being a really poignant moment, you know, discussing both Pak and Hoy's you know, religious affiliation, let's say, and also, you know, Hoy's Christianity. I was wondering if you can speak a bit to that being a more prominent theme, and tying that in, as well as this idea of the afterlife too.
I mean, through the interviews, I met a lot of the guys, and they have religious backgrounds. You know, some of them are Christians, and so I asked them. I said, "Do you feel that might be against, you know, being gay, because the church not always very acceptance of LGBTs, and in the typical Hong Kong fashion?" And they say, "Oh well, no, don't worry. I don't worry about things like that. I just pick the things that I feel is useful, and those that is not, then I just ignore it. You know, so I thought, oh, okay, that's a very practical way of dealing with it. But it also brings up something that is interesting, you know, like even though you find a religion that is, you find, you know, give you a peace of mind or tranquility, you still have to sort of like see whether you get accepted or not, you know. So for them, it is very much like an issue, and they just have to turn a blind eye to it, you know, try not to think about it. So for the movie, I put the religion part in particularly because after Hoy, who has been to Pat's daughter's wedding, he pretty much felt that there's no way that this relationship with Pat could go on, because both of them have families, and he sees that, you know, Pat will never leave his family. So he kind of feels that, well, how am I going to extend this relationship by not affecting his family? So he tries to, the only way that he could turn to is religion. You know, he just felt that even though we cannot be together in this life, maybe we can be together in an afterlife. So it's a very desperate romantic gesture. And so therefore he tries to convince Pat to be, you know, religious, and by giving him the cross and hoping that one day that they can meet somewhere else in an afterlife. So it's a very desperate romantic gesture. So therefore, I thought that would be a very good device to put into it after, you know, I've interviewed all those people with the religious background. And so it also then made me think about his family. How can it be different from Pat's family? And so therefore, I make his son is more religious in that way, so that there's a more contrast between the two families as well.
Yeah. And by the way, everyone too watching, feel free to answer some questions in the Q&A. We're going to get to some audience questions hopefully soon. I love, you know, you shoot in a lot of outdoor spaces, as you know, we've talked about too. And I love the soundscape of this film, just like the crisp textures that you feel like you're on the street. I was wondering if you can speak a bit to that, and if you had any trouble sort of capturing those sounds, and, you know, it's a loud city.
Yeah. Have you been to Hong Kong?
I haven't, no.
Yes, it's nothing but sound.
Only through your film.
It's everywhere. It's just a lot, you know. It's more about editing rather than capturing, because everywhere is just, well, it's very, very dense, you know, the city. So, and you have a lot of noises all the time everywhere. So capturing that is not difficult, but it's then how to edit it, and using sound to help with that scene, to enhance the emotion of that scene, was much more in a post-production kind of way, and try to recreate it in ADR as well. I mean, we did, you know, like recording, like at the beginning of when he washes the cap and all that, you know, we recorded all the sound of the washing and all that, but we have to enhance it later in post-production in order to give it more, you know, to give the sound a more prominent place in that particular scene. And then in other scenes that we have to put some of the sounds down and sort of like enhance some others. So there was a lot of post-production manipulation there, really.
No, it worked really well. And anything beyond the sound to the camera too, I realize that, there's very sort of expansive spaces too when they're in public together, but when they're in their home, a lot of times it's sort of voyeuristic, like looking around the corner. Can you speak to how you and the director of photography sort of worked on the visual language for this?
Yeah, I think we really wanted to, when they are at their home, that to have that very kind of congested and trapped kind of feeling. So therefore, when we shot it, we always wanted to have a lot of foregrounds and backgrounds, and putting the characters in a kind of like enclosed space to give him that very claustrophobic feelings. And then when they start falling in love with each other, then the frames get wider and wider, and when then we see them have a more free kind of like more space in the framings, just to give you that kind of like more relaxed feeling. And also at the beginning that we have a lot of shots that is very static. We lock the camera, and so we don't really see a lot of camera movements. And then only when it starts slowly falling in love, then the camera start moving a little bit more and tracking a little bit more, and then we kind of like increases it. The one moment where you see them in the taxi with the song playing, and that is the time that we felt that it should be one of the most romantic moments in their affair. So that was the scene that we used handheld, where the song is playing and then the camera is very moved, and then we do a lot of like camera improvisation in order to capture that very kind of like smooth romantic feelings. So in terms of camera movements and framing, that's what we do. And the other thing that we tried to do was because the story is about these two very kind of blue-collar guys falling in love. So we want to capture that texture of Hong Kong, Kowloon really, not Hong Kong actually, because we don't want that very high-rise buildings or that shopping mall. We want a kind of like Kowloon, sort of like almost slightly nostalgic kind of feel with a lot of textures. And I mean, those are very photogenic, but not always the most romantic. So we were trying to how to create a kind of like romance in those kind of like almost sometimes quite dingy alleyways or streets and things like that. So that was the challenge that we have, and particularly like in the wet market, trying to do that and trying to make it romantic. And yet, but when you actually shoot in the wet market, there's nothing romantic at all. You have people shouting, cars going past. So that was something that the DP and I was like purposely trying to find like spots where we can get romance out of not very romantic situation, location. Yeah.
Actually, we have a couple audience questions here too, and one of them relates to, at least it's even the music too and the romance. Someone would love to know about the beautiful piano score.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a composer. Her name is Veronica Lee. And so we talk about the different kind of music. We don't want a very big score because we feel that the movie, we want it to be quite understated. And we also want the feel of the movie has kind of like a pseudo documentary style almost, because just to be loyal to the book, which is an oral documentation. So we want to have that kind of feeling, that we don't want it to feel very dramatic. So we said, okay, so we don't want a very big score apart from that song that we use, because that kind of like throwback to the 70s. So therefore we just like place the music here and there, but it's kind of very quietly, and not something that's very dramatic. The song is I don't know. I think maybe for Western audience they would know, but for Asian audience, it's a song that basically the singer is very famous in the 70s in Hong Kong. He's from Taiwan. So we wanted to use a song that is very representation of that era. So I was looking through a lot of songs from this singer called Ching San, because he was very famous in Hong Kong at the time. And so we found this particular one that is, we felt is very melancholic and romantic. And so it's the right song, because all the other ones, a lot of his other songs are very dramatic or melodramatic even. So we are very lucky to find this one. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. We have another question from Sonia. Did you know that the ending would be sad, romantic, and tragic when you started writing the story, or did you discover that ending as you explored the characters? In other words, did you start with the premise of an impossible love?
I think the ending is open. It's not completely impossible either. I also feel that it's really a moment where Pat goes into the church, and at that point in his life, he has already retired, and then he has already said no to Hoy. So really, it's a moment for him to reflect. Okay, I've made all these sacrifices for my family or for society. Is it worth it? Am I happy in this moment? So really the audience can think about it and say, okay, if we can see that if he's not happy, if you were him, what were you going to do? And then you realize that, well, if he's going to give up his family and go and run away with Hoy, and what kind of sacrifices he will have to make. And then if he doesn't do that, and we see the situation he's trapped in, so then I think that moment that we really understand the dilemma these people face, and I think, but not completely hopeless either, because we see that at that moment he also have all these memories of the good time, the romantic time he had with Hoy. So you could imagine that when he goes out, he could start calling him. He could start have a breakthrough. I mean, who knows? So I think really the movie is not much of an ending. It's much more a pause. Like a pause of these people's life, and then just to give us a moment to think about what these people have given up, what are their sacrifices, what dilemma they have to face, but also what they should do and what they should change in themselves in order to maybe make life better. So more like an opening question, I think.
Yeah, I like that opening, and I love the way that you have the montage too of all the spaces they've been to sort of put the audience in there. It's really wonderful. And I love to hear
the editing helped because I don't know whether you know our editor is called William Chan. He was editor for all the Wong Kar-wai movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what happened was that when I was doing the almost like the final editing stages, I would usually invite people to come and watch a cut, and then we will have a discussion afterwards. And earlier I said that Stanley Kwan was very helpful in the film, so I asked Stanley to come and watch the movie, to watch the cut. So he said, oh, can I bring a friend? So I said, sure, okay, bring a friend. So the friend he brought was the editor of Wong Kar-wai, William. So he came to watch the film, and then afterwards he said, oh, let's go and have coffee. So I said, yeah, okay. And then he said, oh, in that scene that we could do this, maybe you can try doing that, how about this, and like that. So I was like, because we were talking and we got on quite well. So I said, well, since you have so many comments, why don't you try giving it a cut? So he said, okay, why not? So therefore he came on board, and then he helped us to finish the final cut.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's one of those, like, you hear it like, like magazines, film magazines, and then it actually happened to me. So I thought, wow, this is wonderful. And that was the part that when, because with the ending, we were trying to show that he still have all these memories of his affair with Hoy, but we don't want to make it very blatant. So we're thinking how to do it well. So he kind of like helped, making some comments, and then we decided to cut some of the shots in, and then things like that. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, no, that's really wonderful, and it's beautifully edited. So much respect. I know that the film is actually screened, at quite a few festivals and won prizes, around the world, and has been released actually in Hong Kong when theaters are open for a brief period of time. I'd love to hear if there was, anyone who came up to you, after a screening in the before times, or you received any correspondence for folks who had seen the film, and if there was any response that really, resonated with you that you would love to share with the audiences too.
Yeah, I think in Hong Kong when we show it, quite interesting because the movies kind of like got 9 nominations in the Hong Kong Film Awards, so it completely put the film in a very mainstream sort of like situation, and also Taibo won the Best Actor. And Garmin, the one who plays the wife, won Best Supporting Actress. So it become a kind of like a commercial movie in a way, the way they launch it. So we were able to show it in 60 cinemas in Hong Kong. And so that really opens the door in the sense that a lot of heterosexual audience would come and watch it. So I actually met a lot of people afterwards in the screening that who have never seen the gay movies before, from 20 something to something who was 50 or 60s, and they would come up to me and said, you know what, this is the first gay movie I've ever seen. And then they said, some of them said, I always have this idea that gay people are very flamboyant. They work in hairdresser and all that. They wear clothes like that. I actually never imagined that they could be like that. They could just be like my dad. They could just be like a taxi driver. I have never imagined that, and this is really eye-opening. And I can really see from your movie that why can't they come out? Because for them, they have built this life together. This whole situation where they are in, for them to suddenly break out and give that up, it's almost like giving out their whole lives to think something that they built their whole lives. So they could really understand that. So I thought that was really nice that, for them to actually start thinking about LGBT in a different kind of way. Yeah.
Well, that's really great to hear. We actually have another question from the audience that ties to this too. And our audience would love to hear a bit more about your work as the chairman of the Lesbian Gay Film Festival in Hong Kong as well. Your work there.
Yeah, well, the festival has been going on for actually much longer. I started in 2000 actually, but originally it started in 1989. That's why it's the longest running in Asia. In 1989 and in 1997 when they stopped the festival, and then I actually restarted it in 2000. So that's how it is. And when I started in 2000, the reason why it stopped in 97 was because they had a lot of financial issues. It wasn't making a lot of money and things like that. So when we started in 2000, we basically had to start from zero. And again, I just have to go to different LGBT communities or people and just ask for a little bit of funding and then to put it together. So the first program that we did, and we only had about 14 movies. And then we just gradually sort of like building it up. And then, so now we have over 100 movies when we show each year. So, but of course this year is a funny situation because the cinema closed during the festival. So we are halfway. We have shown half of our programs, and then we still got another half, which the cinemas is opening again next week. So we might do the other half of the festival next week. We will see. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're able to show the films and such though too. Yeah.
Yeah. So this year our opening film is Two of Us, which is also a film forum. Yeah. So it's good.
It's also a marvelous film. Yeah. That it's a lot more visibility to queer elders as well too. I think deserve more space on screen really. I'd love to hear too, sort of, this is a massive success, like it's a gorgeous film. What are you thinking of working on next now, or is there a process, you focusing on?
Well, I am actually interviewing. I have a couple of ideas, and again, it's sort of like I'm going to interview people, but because of the pandemic, so I was able to set up some meetings, Zoom meetings, but you really need to meet the real people to get the feelings. You want to go to their house and, you want to be friends with them and, so sort of like get to know them better in order to write a story based, on them or inspired by them. And that makes it very difficult because some of them, because one of the stories is people are again slightly older and they not very comfortable using Zoom or anything like that. And then of course they're not comfortable meeting you because of the pandemic. So that has been really delayed. So I'm only been able to make some initial interviews with people, but never something that very deep. So I'm exploring different ideas at the moment, but nothing really concrete. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be gorgeous considering your, previous work. I know that's about all the time we have today. So
thank you so much.
Ray, again, I want to just mention how moved I was by the film, and I was curious to know. I mean, you spoke that Thibault won Best Actor. He won a Best Actor award for his performance, but given his past as a macho actor in Jackie Chan, was there any sort of interesting public response that his performance received playing this role?
Yes, I think that is also part of it. Really, I think I felt that Ben was equally good, but because Ben, the year before previously, he already played a cross-dresser in another movie. So people kind of felt that, oh, wow, he has done that before. But with Haibo also because he has never done anything like this before. And people kind of just remember him from the Jackie Chan movies in the 80s when he was, you know, sort of like playing Jackie Chan type movies. So it's very, very different. So that also makes people kind of like really surprised at his performance as well. And I think he surprised himself. He said, you know, I always knew that I could play the father part, you know, but the gay part is something that was a challenge. And it took him a while to really like, you know, turn her heads around it and think that, okay, I'll give it a go. So, you know, but I thought he did a really good job. Yeah.
Yeah, he's remarkable, but just for that reason alone, it's such magical casting. You know, it's so smart and brilliant and kind of funny. Yeah, it's very inspired. Nick, I wanted to ask you about what's coming up for you, especially with NewFest and how you've been maneuvering COVID and what we can look forward to this summer and maybe next October.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, as was mentioned before, this past October was our 32nd annual festival where we featured Twilight's Kiss as well as two of us. And we pivoted to virtual because we knew that, you know, queer stories cannot be silenced. We have an audience that, you know, counts on the stories and filmmakers that are sharing such beautiful work. So we had to find a way. So yeah, last October for 11 days, we had a full virtual platform of over 120 films, as well as 3 drive-ins for local engagement. So even if we're in our cars honking together, we can still feel like we're like in a community space celebrating queer storytelling on screen. And, you know, right now, NewFest is, you know, I've pivoted to year-round virtual programs. In fact, we just did a few events with HBO and doing premieres. We currently are doing a premiere around It's a Sin, the new Russell T Davies series, which we're offering exclusive access to for our members for the first 2 episodes, and have a panel coming up this Friday moderated by Russell Tovey. We're also looking more into our educational programs with an LGBTQ family movie night at the end of the month, and likely more engagement around supporting you know, a lot of high school students too, being able to see themselves reflected on screen by working with GSAs. So we have a lot more programming coming up though too. So if anyone here is curious to see more, just go to newfest.org and you can sign up for our mailing list, and here are a boatload of things we have coming up.
Well, I commend you both for such extraordinary and important work. So Ray, congratulations. I can't wait for you to continue making films, and maybe one day we can meet in person. And I know, Nick, you and I will see each other soon enough. So thank you both very much for being with us. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank Strand Releasing, especially Marcus Hugh and Carly Hildebrandt, and everyone on the Film Forum staff who made this event possible, especially Adam Walker and Sonia Chung. If you've yet to see Twilight's Kiss, please visit our website, filmforum.org. Our virtual cinema platform presents a dynamic selection of premieres, including documentaries, world cinema, and American independence, as well as restored classics. Finally, stay connected to us through our email newsletter and our social media handle, Film Forum NYC, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We will keep you up to date with additions to our virtual cinema roster and upcoming virtual events. Thank you for being with us tonight. And again, we wish you health and happiness. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Nick. Good evening.